You ready?
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Listo. Well, welcome back to the Metasports League studios and the DigiFan Podcast. We are all back together. Doc's in front of the camera this time. So we got me, we got Wags, L Teagues, and Peanut. Wags, take her away, buddy.
Thank you, buddy. It's great having. I love the little controller here.
He's got the switch.
Our
there.
guy
We're
JC
in.
is peaked, not feeling well. Little post New Year's hangover.
Yeah.
Still probably lingering.
Still struggling.
Yeah.
I don't quite get it, but I've found that even at my young age of 26, Pedialyte is still the golden trick, and I don't know if people just haven't found out about
it's
it.
the most underrated product ever. It got me through COVID.
I mean, it's
Literally.
incredible.
Yeah,
I have one or two of
I
those,
used it
and I'm
too.
golden.
I didn't think body could sweat that much.
Electrolytes.
I do have a question for you guys.
Sure.
You know this whole thing, what is it, the third today that we're doing this?
It is the
You know,
third.
people still ripping the Happy New Year. At what point do you stop with the Happy New Year's?
I think
Is there an etiquette thing out there that I don't know?
It's the first full week.
The first full week. Maybe
Yeah.
I
I do
maybe
it the first full month.
maybe the first full month or the first 2 weeks.
But
give or
then,
take.
if I wish you a Happy New Year,
Yep.
because they make you feel like a complete asshole. If you don't say Happy New Year on your initial email, and then they say Happy New Year, like you're an idiot. And then what if I see you? Then do I have to visibly, say it to you in person too, or are we covered with the email? I mean, it's an awkward thing.
It can be
It's awkward if you want to make it awkward.
I just did. I'm ready for it to be done.
I'm still saying it.
Yeah, I'm still saying it. Yeah.
So I just came back from Mexico, and
No kidding.
Yeah, right.
No kidding.
yeah,
Look at
Adjust-
that, will you?
Adjust the color
Peanut.
temperature. Adjust the
Peanut
color
looks like
temperature.
Casper, the friendly ghost over there.
Oh my God,
That's insane.
man.
there's a little difference there. But they say Feliz Año. So when you go Feliz Año Nuevo, it's Happy New Year.
Right.
And then after that New Year passes, a lot of them will just greet us Feliz Año, like just Happy Year. So that's kind of cool. It's a different.
So you don't get the awkward thing I'm talking about.
Yeah, exactly right.
Okay, then the final thing is this year I'm transitioning into writing the date if I ever have to jot it down.
Okay.
The 2.5 is coming a lot easier than the 2.4 did. At what part of the year, Doc, do you need to go till you have to cross off the 24 to make it 25? When does it get
Right
etched?
now, so right now, all my templates things are still 24. So I've got to change that before Monday.
But I mean, if you have the odd non-DocuSign piece, let's go old school.
Oh,
Where you gotta write the
I'm
check.
at least a month in.
Easy,
for
isn't
sure.
it?
For
Yeah.
sure.
Okay.
I was doing 25 back in 24, so I'm good to go.
You saved yourself a year. It's
100%.
amazing. How about you?
Hey,
Have you ever had to write the date, or is everything on computer for you in your whole life?
a little bit of both.
Okay, so
Yeah, a little bit
I
of
mean,
both.
no one writes checks anymore, do they?
I do.
Sometimes.
yeah, sometimes you have to.
Especially back in that was quite a few years back when I graduated college. But yeah, that was a thing, writing
Well,
checks for
it's-
the landlord.
It's interesting with MN Hockey TV and Live Barn with all of the city municipalities that we deal with. We want to do ACH. We just want to launch it right into the account, not have to deal with it for our rev shares. And it's like, nope, we need the hard check.
Yep. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Of course, we have nice programs that do that and everything, but still, you
Yeah.
got to mail the damn thing.
Sure.
And,
Yeah.
Well, I got a ton of employees that I have to write checks for, so I'm a definite check writer still.
Or how about the groups? How about the groups that use the old? Yeah, we've got a check writing service. What does that mean? I got to wait 6 months for the fucking thing to get to me.
Right.
Sorry.
Everyone wants it so immediately, right?
Yeah.
Like, I want my money now if I need
Of course.
it.
Like,
Zell
and I
it
also-
to me. Zell
and-
to me. Cash
ACH.
App, PayPal.
And crypto, crypto's so great, right? But you deposit a check in the bank and it's 3 to 5 days to settle. It's just ridiculous. And
Right.
But that's why if you do the phone deposit, I'm blanking on the terminology right now.
Direct deposit?
Well, yeah, but being able to take a photo of your check and then have it go right into your bank. That's been gold.
It is, but sometimes it's not automatic either. Or sometimes it looks at the check and it's like
Well,
perfect.
they
I've
give you
cashed it
$400.
10 times.
Nothing's out of
$400, and then they
Yep, yeah.
Nothing's out
Sorry,
of
the next The rest of your check
Yeah.
is going to be 3 days
We're
from
gonna
now.
and
Exactly.
we're gonna churn
Settle
the
it.
interest on you, brother.
Nothing's
just a crock.
Nothing's automatic except for the blockchain. So it's like can't wait
let's
to start using it.
reliable.
Let's ask if this is automatic. Will there be a winner on Sunday night between the Minnesota Vikings and the Detroit Lions?
Do you think it's going to
If
go
they
down in a
tie,
tie?
if they tie,
Well, that was just a segue.
Yeah.
I mean,
what if it was? That'd be amazing, wouldn't
Smooth
it?
transition.
can there
Thank
be
you.
can there be some sort of like stipulation, somewhere in like the fine print of the league rules?
Well,
Like
it sucks if you're a
and then a
Vikings
tie.
fan.
There's got to be if there's
If you're a Vikings fan, you're going on the road for 3 if they tie.
Well, I know we were talking at breakfast, and you were. I'm gonna poke back at you. You were a little bit of a
he's
hater.
prickly. He's
Yeah, he's
prickly.
a little bit of a
No,
hater, a
I-
little prickly. Let's bring out some of the hot takes. I'll push back.
I don't think being, and I think Burnsy, you're on my board here. Like I don't think being a realist is being a hater. I
No.
just think Detroit's offense is all world, and I put it on the par of the '98 Vikings. Their defense, if you remember, before they got absolutely tattered, was among the better ones in the NFL. And, oh, by the way, they were in the NFC Championship. Been there, done that. While the Vikings were sitting on the sidelines last year watching. Sometimes you got to go through a little heartache to get a little extra next step to win. So I'm not saying the Vikings can't win this.
I mean,
The
anytime.
Lions are very good.
Yes, anytime you're scoring over 40 points, right, against any team, such as 49ers, you're a good squad. You have a great explosive offense, and they know how to use it. So it's going to be a good game either way. So we'll see.
They've scored 46 times, 50 twice.
Yeah, which is ridiculous, right?
That's ridiculous.
There's not a lot of people that can say that,
I mean...
teams-wise. Yeah.
And I don't care what your defense is or what your schemes are or what your blitz packages are or what your confusion is. They're going to get theirs, and I'm just feeling like they might get a little bit more because I am yielding to home field.
Okay. Yeah.
But it's arguably said, and I've seen it.
I don't know if that's hating. I'm just being honest.
Well, I get that, but also there's the reality of I still believe that Brian Flores is one of the best halftime adjusters, arguably right now in the league. I mean, we've seen some subpar.
Hopefully they're
first-
close enough for the adjustments to work.
or they're just so dialed, or they're so dialed in that they just continue what they do in the first half in terms of dominance.
I don't think
We gotta.
you're disrespecting that.
No, I'm not. There's
Jameer
just-
Gibbs
Have you seen what
was
have you-
ripping
have you-
off
have you seen-
7.7 a carry against the Vikings in game 1.
But
That's not
that defensive line for the Vikings is something different.
There's one caveat.
What's the caveat?
Blake Cashman was out for both of the Vikings losses,
True.
which were
True.
back-to-back. And he is a great run stopper, and he's all over the field, and he's legit. Plus, Montgomery is not part of the package. He didn't do anything in that first game. But the Gibbs factor scares the hell out of the Vikings fans. Has to.
So just letting you know right now, Cashman,
Yeah.
Blake, he's an incredible guy. I don't know him personally, but I did go to school with his mother back in high school.
Oh.
And
7 degrees
years
separation.
and years, Hopkins High School. And no, but anyways, it's an incredible story, right? He walked onto the U of M team, and he built himself from, zero to hero.
Right.
It's just an incredible,
Yeah.
story
Yeah.
that it still can be done. But he's a great...
Sounds like
he was
that might need
missed.
a movie.
Yeah, exactly right.
Hey.
Let's talk. But he obviously has been missed, and he's a force to be reckoned with, has been, will be for a long time, and I like to see him back out there soon.
He was big on the run stopping and the ability to cover some of those backs and tight ends for sure, and that was part of why they lost those 2 games. Yes, the Vikings D is much more healthy and pretty much intact as opposed to the Lions, who have been absolutely decimated there. They have proven to me, though, over the past 4 or 5 weeks, doesn't matter. They're just going to outscore you.
Yep.
And I think they outscore the Vikings by a couple, 2, 3, 4
But you have to
on
factor
Sunday.
in. You have to factor in how the earlier part of the season went too, and you can't say that there's not going to be an extra. I mean, there are multiple factors that make it an extra chip on the Vikings' shoulders. Again, they want revenge. It's the last game of the season, like we were talking about it at breakfast. The number 1 seed. You get the bye, you get home field advantage, but then there was also the point which I don't know if we want to quite go college football yet, but I know it's something else that we have queued up with how the college
I think
football players have gone.
Wags, I think you may be right, but I think we're discounting the ability for our defense to get takeaways and possibly pick sixes, that kind of thing. So,
I will say the Lions are producing above 33 points a game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's nothing to sneeze at. I've seen a couple of those Vikings games that were, it could have went either way, right?
Aren't we leading the NFL in takeaways? We're up there. I know we're up there.
And some
one
of
or two.
I mean, I think the key defensive metrics, you're right there, and winning turnover battles completely matters. But I think when you get down to it, the Vikes 4th points allowed, Lions 8th, and the Lions dipped to 8th because of the injuries most recently. But they're pretty darn close and pretty comparable in that regard. I think the Vikings passing defense is 28th, it said.
Yeah.
And the Lions is 31st. So why do you think that would be? Well, because when you're leading, everybody's throwing against you. And that's pretty much the fact. But you've got two, legit statistically bad passing defenses.
It's going to be the passing game for the Vikings against the defense Lions and see what happens because we've connected really well. The defense on the Lions, they're pretty solid. Let's just see what happens. Vikings.
See, that's where I'm at. I think we're even up our defense to their offense, and for Vikings, I think we're a field goal ahead of their D.
Then I'll say, to me, if it comes down to the passing game,
let's put a bet.
But I'll say this: if it comes down to the passing game, if you had to put money in Vegas on Jared Goff, or Sam Darnold, and I love Darnold and what he's done, he's been amazing. I would too.
Yep.
And that's to me
hands down.
That's where I'm at with it.
Yep. I think
love him.
We'll see, but I'll put 20. I'll put 20.
20 on what?
He's putting 20 on golf. Golf.
Yeah, I'm definitely in on the Lions on this one.
I'm going 20 with him. Whatever he does, I'm doing.
I'm doing the Lions.
Okay, well, I am too.
I think.
Okay, we go 20-20 back and forth here.
I'm going to do 50 for the Vikings. If anybody wants to take me up on that.
I got 20 on the line for the Lions. I got 20.
We'll figure it out. But I got 50 on the Vikings.
I mean, why are you so? Are you being emotional? Or
I think
why are you
he
being
is.
So sure?
Let's work this out.
I'm kind of trying
let's
to dig
work
into
this
the
out.
core here. What's going on?
What's going on?
This is emotional.
There is a hope and belief.
Hope.
He already lost. He already lost.
No.
He already lost.
There is a conviction, though.
There we go. Conviction.
It can be all things. It's a mixture of things.
Let's go, Peanut.
And
Vikings.
No. Hey,
You
this
guys
is
are
bad.
completely
This is
done.
bad karma here. I would bet 50 all day long. Well, Peanut, I hope that's first of no more.
I mean, there's a there's the first turnover of the game.
Hey, skull!
That's right.
oh my gosh.
So
We're good. We're all good. We're all good.
Yeah.
Now,
Don't worry about
with
it.
all of this said, great job cleaning it up, guys. Look like you've worked in the service industry. I'm impressed. The
Hilltop's hiring.
right there. John's going to be gone for a day. So, all that said, do I take this game in and say, yeah, the Vikes could win? And would I be surprised if they won? No,
not
at
at
all.
all.
But I just feel the narrative coming out of the Twin Cities metropolitan area is so one-sided.
So Debbie Downer. Everybody's hating.
No, I'm just being honest.
We're not haters. We're not
I'm
haters.
respecting the Detroit Lions as as having played in the NFC Championship game and being 14-2. But there's this feeling. Oh, their defense. They're good. That's all I'm saying.
But, but here's the thing, though. Before I knocked over my Celsius, you have
shaking.
you have Kevin O'Connell, who's just absolutely dominating as a coach, like we've talked about, and I know you're not necessarily a fan of some of the locker room talks post game. You think a lot of them are scripted, or maybe.
I think they're great.
Okay, so you do like them. Okay, all right.
What I don't like is I don't need to see them.
Okay.
I don't give it. I don't just
got it. You don't care. Just keep
it's
them
in
private.
the room, man. Keep it there.
Okay.
Get out of here. I don't care.
All right. But the point being said, there's a certain type of culture and precedence that we have with Kevin O'Connell that we didn't have before with previous coaches, and that's. I mean, okay.
It's more of a family.
You talk about You talk about the Lions.
He's got the same thing.
Yeah.
You talk about
just
Dan.
a different way of doing it,
and what he's been able to cultivate and shift around in Detroit. I mean, I see some of the first pressers that he had back in the day, and it's been incredible to see him slowly shift.
He was crying when they were 0-6 because he cared. And he was that vested into his group.
But you take again, the coaches across the board, Kevin O'Connell, Brian Flores, you have Sam Darnold, who's, again, bounced around and has had different chances in different organizations. He's finally clicking. You got Aaron Jones, who's clicking, which last week I think he only had 46 yards
with
rushing.
a sore hammy quad.
But it felt like every single yard was worth like 10 yards. He showed up when we really needed him.
Okay, since most of this room probably does not like the Packers, and I do.
Why?
Because I was born there?
Well,
Homer.
Birthright.
Homer.
Yes.
However, I've been a lifelong Viking fan as a person,
Okay.
but I really like and respect the Packers, and I think they've gone about their business about as well as any organization in the National Football League in my lifetime of 58 years. So I have no problem with saying that, but I have watched Aaron Jones very closely in crunch time the last 4 games of a season and the playoffs. Last year, he was the best back in the National Football League in running. He is really good at picking up extra yards. He's not the biggest guy. We see that. But I do think that Aaron Jones has the ability to change a game with his ground attack. But Gibbs is just as good as him. So I think it all counters each other. You've got a ton of local feel-good stories here in Minnesota that we love. Those are stories. I'm getting to the field itself. And what's going to happen in those 60 minutes of football, none of us in this room know.
No.
We have no idea.
Speculating.
I'll say that
we would like things to happen, but we
Yes.
have no clue.
We have no clue. The one thing I will say, and I'll be as real as it comes here, there's no fluff. The one thing that I've seen from the Lions is a higher level of consistency. Yes, they're both 14-2. They're great teams. I think it's going to be arguably the best game of the year, probably the most important game of the year. The Vikings, they haven't been as consistent, and I'll be real with it, they haven't been as consistent as the Lions. I think that's probably the one weak spot in their year. Yeah, they, you think about it, they could be an undefeated team, which would be pretty crazy to say.
And we've never really stepped on anyone's throats except for one
but,
game.
It's the consistency. So that was the one thing where it's like we've had those rough spots. There's been multiple quarters in the game where it's like, where did the team go? So that's the one thing.
And each game ebbs and flows. So
yeah.
And I heard Minnesota Vikings have been to the Super Bowl how many times?
4.
4. Detroit Lions 4. They both have
I
won
don't even
0.
know.
Well, I think
that's the Bills.
That's the
That's
Bills.
the Bills.
That's the Bills.
That's
If
the
we
Bills.
were to blow through everybody and
Thank
make
you.
it to the Super Bowl, yep, that
That would be a sweet.
I mean, but then you get into the whole playoff scenario. And here's the other thing that, Dan Campbell's been, decently public in this over the past week of, do we want to win this game? Yeah, for sure. I feel like here in our area in the Twin Cities, we're building this up to be
feeling like a must
the
win?
NFC. Yes, the NFC Championship.
It is, almost.
But teams come through with 3 road wins in the wild card scenario, and especially one that would be 14-3 if they lost that game. There's no doubt the Minnesota Vikings could do that and would most likely see the Lions again for a third time. So I feel as though, be careful. I know the group. They're pros. They're building themselves around this. Do we want to get this? Yes. Is it a goal? Yes. Do we want to go 1-0 this week, like they say? Absolutely. From the external stuff, it's not the end of the world if they lose.
Right.
It's not.
I get the sense it's not the end of the world to them, but for Minnesota, the
That's
Minnesota
exactly
fan,
right.
Yes.
the self-loathing Minnesota fan, if they lose this game, it's like, here we go again.
Yeah.
I'm not that guy.
Yeah,
They're
And
going
I
all the way,
appreciate
boys.
that. It doesn't matter how they get into the post.
Yeah.
They've won 14 or 15 games,
which is pretty incredible.
which is insane.
So real quick too, if you had
And
another,
there's no way
Just
there'll
one
be a
last
tie.
thing. Well,
Not with those offenses.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say Talk Sports has Lions poised to be number 1 seed, is what they're saying.
Okay.
I would agree with
So
that.
we'll see. Games coming up, and we'll all have our.
Peanuts
We'll see.
sunk.
Yeah, we'll see what the injury report's like.
He was discrediting that. He was finding ways to discredit that.
No.
But I
just-
mean, it's hard
I'm
to
thinking-
do. It's really just it's numbers, right? At the end of the day, numbers don't lie.
Yeah.
And they, but at the end of the day, also,
You got to play.
yep, each
Yeah.
team can come out and do whatever they want. So
The one thing we'll talk about, maybe this is a good transition here, a little bit away from NFL talk. I know we were talking about college football. Hit that real quick. and we're talking about getting the number 1 seed, getting home field advantage, getting the bye. And I remember seeing last night, which I was pretty surprised to hear, but I believe it was all of the teams that had first round byes in the college football playoffs. They all lost.
Right.
Yep.
And so that was a point that I know you wanted to dive into a little bit, and we can maybe hash it up a little bit.
Love the segue. That was perfect. And it's one of the things that we were chatting off air on earlier this morning about. First of all, I love the format. I'm not thrilled with buys ever.
Yep.
Yeah.
As a player, as a coach, I don't know if I would love that either. I'd want to keep moving. I don't think you're going to heal a season's worth of injuries in 1 week, particularly, let's say.
Nope.
And I feel like those teams that came in, you take Notre Dame versus Georgia, just use that as an example.
Yeah, that's an incredible example.
And Notre Dame looked like they were playing at a championship level, and they were. And Georgia was maybe a little bit flat-footed.
The last 10 seconds of the first half, even, or the last 20 seconds first half.
But that takes that's a whole half of football there.
Yeah.
Until you can kind of get your footing. I would like to see 16 teams in.
Yep.
One plays 16, all the way to 8.
Similar to March Madness in the spring.
Why not? You do it in those other sports and move it back a week. We got the weeks. Let's go, and no buys.
Yeah.
Everybody.
I
So
like it.
your bye, like I said, is technically an off day against a 16th ranked team who I think could actually beat a 1 seed.
Yeah, you never know.
Because the
I mean,
thing
you
in
never
college
do know in
football is you
college.
never know.
You never know. You think about all these.
You don't.
And we'll have to pull up a list. I'll circle back on it next week. You think about all the teams that came in and they got paid, anywhere from $1 to maybe $4 million on the high end to go and play, and then they end up coming, into this away, or this new facility, new town. They're playing an away game, and they come in and they beat these teams. So I mean, what? I always laugh about it because it's like, oh, hey, here we're paying another team a couple $1 million and we're losing to them. I mean, it doesn't get any much worse than that, but we've seen it time and time again over the last couple of years.
No, and the other part we talked about is, okay, then there's the big business of the bowls, and how does this all get sifted out? Okay, so let's say you're the Fiesta Bowl, or I don't know, what do we got, the Captain Crunch Bowl now, or whatever it is? I mean, name it. That's a joke. Peanut's looking for it. He's like,
No.
which one was it?
No, I was looking.
It's the Sugar Bowl.
But the point is with those, you have to, that's a big business, not only for the universities that participate, but also for the NCAA and also television. Okay, so how do we work our way through that? And around that, I still think you keep the 17 teams and you have your bowl games. Fine, they're consolation prizes, but they're still doing the consolation prizes now. I think the interest level that I felt just from my text chains of people watching those games this weekend was higher than if you had one national championship before they even went into naming the 4 teams.
Yeah.
I agree.
Higher than I've ever noticed because it was such intrigue.
Yeah. Well, the one point in the thing that I was digging for, and I'm not saying this is necessarily the best case study, but even seeing what Army did this year, they were, with the bowl win, they were 12-2, so they were 11-2 heading into the end of the season. They only made it up to 22 on the poll, and I thought it was interesting that they had gone against Louisiana Tech, who only had 5 wins during the season. So the point being made, I was just curious how some of these bowl games were actually selected, and it just seemed kind of wonky. It seemed kind of odd with some of the matchups that they had. The Radiance Technologies Independence Bowl, whatever that is supposed to be. But it's just an example that I thought, I'm like, they had a pretty good season. I know it wasn't necessarily the best strength of schedule, but there is still a point to be made, how the committee comes down to
how they
some of these
balance
games.
it, like, let's say the Outback Bowl would be 4th place
11
Big Ten.
But 11-2 versus 5-win team?
But they would say 4th place Big Ten versus 4th place ACC or SEC. Okay, you can kind of live with that. But how are they doing these? And what are the arrangements that these bowls have with these conferences? Because all the conferences want to make sure their teams are covered because they need to make money.
It's all about the dollar bill.
Because of
Well, that's what we were talking about earlier. It's like what I don't really like is the composition of these teams maybe completely changed between the end of the season and the bowl games. That doesn't make any sense to me at all. I don't know.
Wow.
I mean, didn't Notre Dame have a whole load of kids that were new?
Yeah.
Well, we were talking about how many of the big plays that were had, like you said, were transfers, and that's going to be the interesting too, seeing what obviously is going to be happening locally. You know, at one point Minnesota was off to a hot start with some of the portal transfers. I think they had 10 at the time, and I haven't seen updated numbers in a couple of weeks. With all the bowl games and different stuff going on, but that's it's interesting. I think there was a pretty good bit. I'll have to find it again for next week. Where Saban was talking about how the business of college football has evolved, and or actually, it was Deion Sanders. He was talking about it during one of the pressers, and was just saying, when they go and recruit these freshman players, they're recruiting them to actually play. They're not recruiting them just to have them sit on the sideline. And then again, with how the business is, we've talked about it the last couple of weeks or over the last several times now. You have a lot of those kids who probably won't actually start then, and then how many of them will go in the transfer portal? Well, you're recruiting these kids, and you can probably imagine half or even a quarter of them sticking around, because they see a new shiny opportunity, or one of their friends is recruiting them.
Kids want to play. Kids want to play. If you're going to be recruited, they want to play. They expect to play at some point, right? I mean, but a lot of them, they sit around, they get the pine until they get that call up.
Here's where it gets interesting. And I always kind of argue this about Minnesota high school open enrollment. So let's say you're really into math and sciences, but the school you have might not be that great.
Yep.
And then you want to transfer to a school up the road, no problem. You go from sophomore year to junior year, and you can study math and science. They don't make you wait a year to do that. But if you play a sport, the sport, which is part of the school, doesn't fit maybe what your family advisor or your family thinks or whatever, then, what's the difference between extracurriculars and the educational?
Exactly.
So from the college thing, if you can transfer from the University of Minnesota to the University of Wisconsin as a student seamlessly, technically that should happen with sports. But the problem is this money thing has changed it all.
Yeah.
And it makes it a problem.
I don't think... Oh, go ahead, Doc.
No, I was just going to say, don't you think, like, now that the money's there, the transfers at the high school level, the pressure will be to transfer. But do they have to redshirt, or how does that work?
Yeah,
so a year of eligibility.
It used to be that you would have to sit out a year in college.
Yep, well, that's exactly right.
But now they don't.
Right, but even with redshirt, there's still those stipulations, and I guess I haven't seen it what it was coming into this year, but you could still redshirt and play a finite amount of snaps or games and still be considered eligible, within
for
that
your full
within that window.
years,
But again, and I think we're kind of coming out on the tail end of it now. But especially with what happened a couple of years ago in the world, everything flipped upside down. Then so you take that year, which a lot of players got an extra year of eligibility. Then you have a lot of people who maybe redshirted, so then that's another one. And then I know there's been plenty of players that maybe get a medical redshirt or they have an injury. So then you have all these, some people are coming out with technically 6 or 7 years. But again, I think we're kind of getting beyond that point now, given where we are.
Can I wrap that college thing up?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's tie a little bow on it, and then I know
we'll go on to the next one, which is
some,
going to be good. The thing that's, and I'd love to get both of your and Doc, when he's done tweaking cams and stuff off. There he is. He's popping in and out, just cool as a cucumber.
Freeze up on your
I would
camera.
love to get your takes on this. Like, this problem's never going to be solved today or this moment. But the college sports scene is, to me, in such a flux of definition. What is it? Is it a minor league for pro sports, or is it a post-secondary educational extracurricular pay for you? It's become big business, and I think they have a definition issue. Mm-hmm. You got 1 foot in, 1 foot. What are you?
Yeah,
and to me, that's what needs to be figured out. We won't sort it out, but that's the question.
The foundation,
right?
And it's been interesting too, and then we can kind of move on. This may be a good segue point here as well. I know when we had Mr. Delich on with us, and we were talking about the landscape of hockey here in Minnesota, but also nationally too. You look at, okay, if a player is going to go to juniors or they're going to go up in Canada play, and then they still have eligibility to come back. It's an interesting comparison between that and then even seeing what's happened over the years with college basketball too. I know something we haven't talked about a lot yet, but I know as we get here in the next month. We're going to have a lot of conference championships. March Madness is going to be right around the corner, so we'll have some interesting talks there. But seeing what's happening or has been happening with college basketball more and more, again, that kind of that split, what is it? Well, for a lot of basketball players, it's usually a one and done. Somebody's going to go to Duke or they're going to go to a big, Power 5 school, and it's just a pit stop. I mean, they're touching down, they're getting up, and then they're going right into the league. And I'm curious to see where that goes.
But that's a lot of NBA jobs we're talking about now.
Lots.
Good luck.
Yep.
Not only that, but I think you're right. I think we're onto something, and we're not going to be able to figure it out right now. But things have developed, right? And not only with the athletes themselves, but just the institutions, and it is big money.
It is
very big, very big.
So there goes that. We were talking about Alexander Ovechkin.
Oh,
Let's talk about that when we come back from a commercial break.
Oh, we'll take a break. Woo!
DigiFan Podcast for all the boys. Be back in 3 minutes.
You ever missed your child's hockey game because you were out of town? Or maybe you didn't want to get up at 5 a.m. Or just maybe your kids had games at the exact same time. Luckily for you, there's Live Barn. Our completely automated cameras ensure that you'll never miss a game again. Becoming a member is easy. Simply sign up and start watching from any of the hundreds of venues on our network. Anytime, anywhere, on any device. Players can instantly share video, and all members can submit highlights to be considered for Live Barn's Plays of the Week. Live Barn allows you to review practices and games to improve your team's performance. Whether you're a beginner, all-star, has-been, coach, parent, now you can watch hockey when you want, where you want, how you want. Head over to livebarn.com.
Hello, everyone. Doc here from the MetaSports League and the MetaBeauts NFT project. I'm here to help you learn a little bit more about NFTs so you can join us in the fun of collecting, trading NFTs. We made this Coach's Corner so that any noob could jump in, learn the ropes, and start trading NFTs. So today's topic is how to set up your Coinbase account and fund it with a little thing we call Ethereum. And that's the first step into this wonderful world. So buckle your chin straps. Are you ready? Let's go. And we're back.
Woo! Are you having fun?
I don't know. This is tough.
You're stressed.
I'm trying to control everything right on the table here.
You're doing a great job.
And the
You're
cameras
crushing it.
keep messing
I
it
had
up.
my stress meter go off on my watch. It said breathe. And then really, it's really your vibe is oozing right into me.
Damn it! Well, I was watching the commercials, and I just have to say, love the commercials. Love what you do. It's great. It's
Little
great.
Entertainment. MetaBeauts, a little long lost.
Yeah, a little
This
bit
is the DigiFan Podcast, so at some point, I think
We'll have more.
we'll cross paths between sports and digital assets.
Yep, 100%.
That
I'm all
sounds
for
good.
it. I know. Right before we jumped off, you were hot and heavy. You're ready to jump into some hockey talk. Let's
go.
Let's jump into it here.
Well, let's go there. We've got Alexander Ovechkin was in action against our local Minnesota Wild last night. Scored a goal. His 871st of his career, which puts him 23 behind Wayne Gretzky's 894.
Unbelievable.
That's incredible. Now think about it this way. That's awesome. But he's about 1,300 points behind Gretzky for all time. But
Yeah,
there's
all
zero
time.
chance anybody breaks that in my lifetime.
And that was the point that you were saying too off the air is the precedence, the level of play that Gretzky had set to not only be as dominant of a scorer, but I think you'd use the word helper, facilitator.
Right.
I mean, we really haven't ever seen anything like it. So
The game's changed so much. I just have to
Yes.
say, what you could do back then is not what you're doing now.
Yeah.
And the finesse that these players have, and how they find the space that they do is just absolutely incredible.
But they're defensed way better today than they were yesterday, too.
I'll
So
just
it's
say,
hard.
I think it's still hard to score goals.
Oh, it's
Yeah.
extremely difficult.
I mean, when
That's why-
when Ovi's on the
on the
on the left side of the left hash, he just one teeing up every power play.
Well,
Clappy's on the hashies. Clappy's on the hashies.
And you know he's going to do it.
Oh yeah. No,
And-
you
and,
can't
you
do
know,
anything
you
about
should.
it.
And,
You can't do anything about it. It's just
It just goes to show, though, he was in an era where goal scoring was real tight, and he's. I feel like he's flown under the radar a little bit in a weird way. Like I brought this up where when you're in the midst of greatness and you're seeing it happen,
Yeah.
sometimes you don't even really realize it until he's here,
Yep.
and he's 38 years old, and you go, as a collective society, ooh, what did we miss here?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I said to these guys, it's because I don't care about the East. Like I don't care about the Rangers. I don't care
Yeah.
about the Patrick division of old school. I don't care.
Right.
I love the Norris, and we'll just leave it there. But the Western Conference is what I follow because why shouldn't I? It's where we are.
Yeah.
But I would say as a whole, yes, he's been known as a goal scorer, but I don't think people really knew the wicked torrid pace he was going on when he got to 400, 500, 600. It's been talked about over the past few years now. He's showing no signs of slowing down. This guy's got the 50-goal
No.
seasons just racked. He's impressive.
And he can fight. He can throw punches. Let's talk a little bit about Colorado Avalanche, our Jason Zucker.
Ooh.
All right. On the comeback, he scored a hat trick, a goal in each period against
Jeez.
the
I
Buffalo
didn't even see that.
Sabres. Yeah, and how's Arizona feeling right now, letting him
Yeah.
go, right? Zucker's a heck of a player, and he's
Yep.
dominant, and he's seasoned. And
Yep.
hey,
Fortunately, they've got these little things on the bags now that you just pull the patch off.
yeah,
You put the new one
it's
on.
like a magnet. It's
Yeah,
like,
just
okay,
put a new one
switch
on.
the teams.
He's pretty much had every one, right?
Yeah,
I know
but he's a really solid guy. I just have to say,
Yeah.
very humble. Easy to talk to. He's very cool.
Close personal for you?
I've known him for a couple of years. So is Doc, and we've done a little business together with him. And he's a great guy.
Yeah.
I always find it interesting. I know I brought it up a couple weeks ago. Seeing different Minnesota players move on, whether it's the Twins, whether it's the Wild, Timberwolves, Vikings, you name it. They have their time, they have their stint here. Not saying that there's been some great players obviously have moved on. There's maybe been some players that haven't, performed at the best. But it's always interesting seeing a lot of these players move on. And I'm sure, again, it happens to every single major sports team, but I just notice it more, obviously, because it's the hometown team. But so many players nowadays go on and they just catch lightning in a bottle. They absolutely just torch it, for whatever reason, whether it's chemistry, culture.
well, it's
I know
like
that was,
the big
Depends on
poppy.
situation.
well, and that was something we had,
Interesting.
And that was something we had talked about though with the home record and the away record for the Wild. So that's something that we'll jump into.
But
as
let's
well.
be honest with Big Poppy for a minute. Did you guys watch that piece on Netflix at all?
Not
I
yet.
did not.
I need to though.
Worth watching. And I think one of the most important things is I think we see him in this market and all of the success he had. They weren't sold on him either when he started, and he wasn't getting a lot of playing time, and they were shelving him, and they weren't using him for the same reasons. And then he finally went into the office of Theo and says, "You're gonna just
What's the deal?
play me," or but that's 2 in a row. So they were seeing and feeling the same thing that the Twins were, and they didn't go to him right away. He forced the issue, good for him, and he took advantage of it, and he's the Poppy.
Oh, that's interesting.
It's a great show.
Yeah.
I would watch it.
Okay.
It's really well done.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Arguably one of the biggest blunders in Minnesota Twins history.
No.
Because
you
of-
can't
because of that,
You
'cause you
can't
just don't
predict
know,
that.
right?
You can't predict that because what I'm saying is
Sure.
he almost became a blunder of the Red Sox because they were getting the same data and breakdowns, and they know swings when they see them,
Yeah.
and they weren't liking it.
Yeah.
And so then he went in, made some changes, and watch the video. I would say no. I mean, from a hindsight being 2020, absolutely. But what's hindsight worth?
Right.
To me, nothing.
True.
I just want to step back a little bit and just the hockey thing in the Wild. What about that hit about with Jared?
The slew foot.
Yeah, Spurgeon.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, like, I saw that in replay, slow-mo, and I hate to say it, that was dirty. That was he was done dirty.
That was a little dirty.
I would like. So I don't. It's funny. Like I've never known much about the slew foot.
Oh,
Let's say, like you
it's
just don't,
horrible.
But but what I'm saying is you
Yeah.
don't see it a lot.
Yeah. Especially in
And,
NHL.
and you watch it and you wonder, like, okay, are their feet together and they're both stopping in a way, or is this guy doing it, or what does that look like? But
Super intentional.
you just like with your stick, if you're flying around with it up in the air,
Yeah.
you're responsible for it.
100%.
So if you're going into a corner with a guy, his well-being is your responsibility as well. And I think this league has done a much better job of that.
Yep.
And for the Wild, it's 2 to 3 weeks, they're saying, for Spurgeon.
I mean, that's crazy.
I thought he was out for way longer.
I thought he
Yeah.
was, after I saw
It
it, I was
turns
like,
out to
he
be
has
way
been
better.
done. Yeah, thank God.
For Kaprizov, the word out on the street is
He's
they're
out for a little bit.
They're not saying it's a groin, but that's what Laco had. They brought him back early.
Was it a nut shot?
No. We'll call it Gabrick's disease. Remember Marion
Off the
Gabrick had the
pills.
pulled groin like every other minute?
Yeah.
I honestly believe, can I get technical for a second?
Yes,
and
please.
this
Go for
it.
this plays back into Alexander Ovechkin.
Yeah. He'll play through anything.
Well, he had serious groin issues
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
And so did Marion Gabrick.
Okay.
Dr. Jack Blatherwick, who's a former Gopher coach, who's
Okay.
a big hockey coach in this area, who's a legend, and tip of the cap to you, sir. You are the best. He had the slide boards, and he said the way the Euro skate were a little bit different, and the way they come down to create pressure. And he got the slide boards out and got Ovechkin's muscle memory to start changing to not putting the pressure on the groin. I'm paraphrasing.
Kind of open up the hips. a little
Yeah,
bit more,
I'm not saying
Yeah.
exactly how
So
it
the
worked,
tech-
but
the
that was the
technique of it.
concept of it.
Yeah.
Changing
The
technique.
the distribution
And-
of power in your
And
lower half.
He told me this in 2008-9, and he goes, "I could fix Gabrick in a second, but he and they wouldn't do it."
Really?
Yep.
Oh.
Nope. And he said I could fix it, and that kind of derailed his time here.
Yeah.
And I think what could have even been a bigger and better career for him. But AO has never had that injury since. That's
Yeah.
interesting. So
It really is. I mean, I
interesting
think
thing.
there's something to it, and it's fascinating how you wouldn't want to just try anything to fix it, right? It's like if you have the magic wand, I'm coming to you.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of work that went into because there was a time when Jack was one of the coaches in that regard, like a physio coach, strength coach type thing for the Capitals back in the day. Found that very fascinating. By the way, his work with defensemen is so good.
Yeah.
I've watched him where he's good. Then that leads us to the Kaprizov thing.
Yeah.
He could probably come back if they needed him, but why do they need him when they're 14-3-3 on the road?
Yeah.
They have the third most points in the National
really
Hockey
awesome.
League right now. They're
They're
banking.
back up to third.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, they've won
Yeah.
4 or 5
Yep.
after losing 4 in a row, and so I'm not bullish, but I'm way back on board.
You were
again-
pretty bleak a couple
Well,
weeks
I mean,
ago.
I've lived it over and
And
over
that's-
this home skid.
Yeah.
And it happens every single year, and then they go out and they win a huge game where they're down 3-2 in the third period to the Caps, tie it up, and then win in the shootout. And Fleury was magical in those 3 attempts. The third against, of course, his fellow future Hall of Famer Alexander Ovechkin. But I think what's interesting, you kind of have to, as John Hines said in the media scrum, he said you have to do your job. Doesn't matter who you are. Doesn't matter if you're number 1, number 6 D-man. You do your job, do it right, and take care of it yourself and get that done right, and we'll be good. I think it does take a little bit of time when you start bringing new parts and pieces into lineups
100%.
in order to kind of get it together. But this group is showing some pretty strong resiliency here and the ability to say, that guy's hurt, that guy's hurt, that guy's hurt. Here's 4 guys in the lineup that weren't here when it started.
And make the chemistry work.
Right.
You know, that's very difficult
The dynamic.
to do. But Doc's coached hockey. I've coached hockey. I'm not sure if either one of you have coached.
30 years.
Well, then
we go.
you know,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's very, very difficult. But when you do get that group and they start practicing together and you change up the lines just so that, for instance, something like this happens, you're able to mesh these kids together, you know, and it makes something happen out of it.
It's all making sure. Like I interviewed Ken Pauley on my Inside the Bubble show.
Okay. Yeah.
And we talked about roles, and he said really the difference between winning and losing is if players accept roles, no matter what it is, a high-end important scoring role or a grinding role, support role, whatever it is. It's no different than baseball, because I've always laughed at how people kind of like say, well, you put the chubby kid behind the plate, you put the tall, lanky guy at first, you put, you know, this guy here. Each position is numbered 1 through 9 for a reason.
Yep.
And each position is equally important because it has to come through when it's called upon. You don't know when that's going to be.
It's going to happen.
Some will be more often. It's going to happen. Same thing for roles. Doesn't matter what your role is. If you want to be on a team and you want to win, you probably have people in your office whose roles is not as big as yours. But it's important if they don't do their role because you can't do yours.
Yeah.
I mean, prime
Slows the process.
Right.
example though is having some of these quote unquote utility players, people that are coming off the bench that are really positionless players. I know one example, someone that I think of for even the Twins recently, Farmer. You know, we had picked him up,
Loved him.
and just kind of was a
Fast
signing
sense.
out of nowhere for me. And you know, he's a guy that can play infield pretty much everywhere. But you have those people that can do maybe a little bit of third if you need them, short, second, first, even a little bit of spotty outfield. Not saying that they're going to be elite and top level, but they're serviceable. They'll get the job done. They can keep the ball in front of them. They can make those plays when they need to. And the one other point that I wanted to jump in real quick that you guys were touching on, you know, like you said, the last 4 or 5 games for the Wild have gone pretty well. I've always found it how interesting, whether with the Timberwolves, whoever, especially some of these sports where you can play multiple games in a week, how quickly the narrative can change from one week to another. You could be, you know, they had lost multiple games in a row, and I was like, you were talking about that too. It wasn't looking good, but then they can win 4 or 5 games in a row, and you're like, wow, they've really turned it around, and that's how I've always thought sports is so interesting, especially lately now in life, how quickly things can flip.
What's crazy about that, Peanut, is I've said it before here, how much these guys, whatever the sport, truly care. They care. And
Well, they want to win.
They take it incredibly personal when they lose. And I think the first locker room that I covered of the Wild that was struggling was that year before they brought in Parisi and Suter. And there would only be 2 guys you could talk to.
Yeah.
And they would stand up and they'd take the mic and they'd take the hit, and it was like a morgue in there. It's like you're at a funeral. It was like whoa. And then it was then when you look around, you go, wow, these guys really do care. I mean, you think 80 games, but they would, but they care. And so I think what happens, they care so much that when you lose and it starts snowballing, it kind of goes both ways. When you win, you're feeling good. It snowballs the other way, and then when you lose, it's the other way, which is fascinating.
I will say this: I've coached with Doc, and he has the best one-liner, and I'll just say this: winning isn't everything, but wanting to is.
Right.
You know, and when you really think about that, that's a huge, huge thing. And if you can really understand that, it makes a lot of sense. And you know, everybody wants to win, right? But as coaches, we want to, like you said, there's a first, second, third, and there's a lineup, and you want to, you know, help that team succeed. So
where there's desire, like you're saying, you're speaking to the desire to win.
And can I take what you're saying a step further?
Yeah.
It's right on. It's brilliant. Wanting to win is different from wishing to win.
100%.
It's one thing that wishing isn't going to get anything done.
Right.
But wanting is
effort.
doing it
Yes.
and expecting it.
it coincides with action and effort.
Correct.
And doing everything you can to get
and wishing
that
to win
outcome.
is waiting for it to drop into your lap.
Yeah,
Agreed.
That's not
And
gonna
it's
help.
it's those small details too. I'm thinking of, I'm thinking of even like football, for example. I mean, that's one sport. You have so many different snaps. I know just the other week ago, we were talking about Travis Hunter winning the Heisman, talking about the number of snaps that he took in one season. He took I believe it was 450 plus more snaps than the next closest player in all of college football. And you look at the effort that people are outputting on every single play, and it's those small things. Even I think of wide receivers, where they're out there to have some of the best hands in the game to catch those footballs that are chucked and hurled down 40, 50, 60 yards that nobody else can catch. But it's those plays even when they're blocking, when they're going out there and there's a sweep or there's a pitch and the running back's blazing down the sideline and there's that key block that they need versus just kind of carelessly standing there. It's those particular plays too that really stand out.
Or that block would have never happened without the effort of them coming back to help out. The play is not over until it's over, right?
Yeah.
Game's not done till it's done. So
exactly.
Got to play to that final buzzer.
Playing to the whistle. Yeah,
that's right.
100%.
You absolutely do. One of the things, final thought here on the Wild that aren't discussed very often is what a job that John Hines is doing as the head coach.
Yes,
because he didn't
no
come
doubt.
in necessarily to the best situation.
He came into a shit show.
Yeah.
And he came into a situation where you had, in my opinion, a coach that was completely opposite of him, who wore his emotion on his sleeve, which can be good. But we saw the incredible meltdowns in the playoffs against Dallas, which bled over into the roster. And it was at that point where the next season starts, and they were more of the same, one of the most penalized, undisciplined teams in the league. And you bring in John Hines, who's had decent success along the way. In New Jersey, he was in a rebuilding project there when he got there in the teens. And he saw it through, and it's turned the corner, but he was the front end of that. Then he went with David Poyle when he was GM at Nashville, and he was, again, in a weird transitional phase there. Maybe not given enough time to do what he can do, but Billy Guerin knew what he could do at Wilkes-Barre when he was coaching the Baby Pens.
Okay.
And I believe he won a Calder championship there, I think. I of course don't have it at the top of my head. I think he did. But he's had experience with him and liked what he did. And so it was sort of like you felt like Billy was going to ride or die with this guy. And everybody's like, John Hines, like, what do we know? And all I've observed is a pro coach. He is a pro, man.
Solid,
I trust him as a fan, as a viewer. If I were a player, I trust him. He knows what's best for us to get us in position to win games and get the right combos going and how everything works. And I don't think he gets enough credit in the National Hockey League. I don't. So there, put me on record.
What about Guerin as well too?
He's funny. By the way,
he's top class. Like I said, I know quite a few weeks ago I was talking about one of the local radio shows that he usually chimes on to, and man, it's just as great hearing him on the radio as seeing him on TV. But the ability that he's had to manage this roster and organization, even through, I'm sure you guys have a better sense and pulse of it than I do. I know you guys are much bigger into hockey than I am, but the situation that he's been able to navigate with the whole Parisi and Suter situation. That's not easy to do when you're, asked to bring in young talent and to and try and kind of recapture, revitalize some of that.
I'd love to
that veteran skill. Well, that veteran talent that's still relevant and win too.
I want to throw an angle before that, and I think Paul Fenton, who I think is with Florida still right now, deserves a shout out. He was here for 1 year. And he came in and spoke the hard truth of, we've got some serious financial issues here with this team, with our cap and how we're doing things. But more importantly, we've got a cultural issue here.
Okay.
And we've got a room that's segregated between old guys, and we've got a room that's segregated between young guys. What am I going to do? Well, I can't get rid of the old guys because they have no trades. and these guys here, this isn't going to work. So he moved out the Niederreiters, the Granlunds, and Zucker. Well, that was later.
That was later.
And some of the unpopular moves among the fans, but that was a move to start to kind of like get the foundation cleared out. He didn't get to see it through because then Billy came in and literally picked up where he left off. And I think between the two of them, their draft picks have been phenomenal. And because they've been so good, they have such a future that's coming up. And I've gone through this a million times, and Peanut, you got me going. So sorry, here we go. But
Let's go.
What I think, you see a lot when things don't go well. Everybody starts ripping the Hartman, the Foligno, the Zuccarello, those type of extensions.
Yeah.
Oh, we're stuck. They're old. They're this, that. What I really firmly believe is that you need to have your culture, as you guys know, locked in your room. And that's what those guys are. That's the culture that this team wants.
They have
not
a lot
the
of
older
locker room
leadership
guys.
group.
They have a lot of locker room guys.
They're there for a reason for Marco Rossi to become the pro. Really, his name's actually Rossi, but we Americanized it to Rossi. He's come in and he's become a pro. And then you see, Kaprizov's going to be what he's going to be, and then Faber's going to be what he's going to be, and we all know Yurov could be better than Kaprizov from what I'm understanding. All the other guys that are coming along the ways, that's from a very high-level source in the office. But he is going to be something. So what's interesting about that, I believe he's a center iceman, so you have Yurov, we have Rossi as your number one, and then Yurov is your number two. Next year, 1-2 centers forever. Okay. Meanwhile, Zuccarello is going to fade off into the sunset. Hartman's going to fade off into the sunset. They'll hand the keys over to these young guys who have been here now for the next batch of young guys that come in. And I think when you look at a more long-term view of where this team is at,
it looks pretty
not
freaking
be
good.
in a better spot than it is. And I think it's awesome.
That's great.
Yeah.
So he doesn't get enough credit, but Fenton was the first part of it, to be honest.
First part of it.
He gets completely overlooked, but he did some things that people didn't have the guts to do.
And that's really the interesting thing. Yeah, great take. I mean, you have to look at the farm system. Who's coming up through the ranks too, and seeing what they have. And I don't know why it's blanking my memory, but down in Iowa, correct? Am I remembering that correct? Seeing what they've been able to do down there as well, and when you have that balance of if there's somebody that's needing to play some games, or I know it's a little bit different with hockey versus baseball. Baseball, a lot of times you'll have different pros go down to single A, work their way back up, and do some rehab games along the way. But having that farm system, man, where you can call people up and they're ready to go, they're ready to step up into those big spots. I mean, that's just as important as feeding the league as anything else. So, kind of final
guys
points
like
there.
Riley Height, he was maybe going to make the team out of camp, but he got sent back to junior. He's that young. There's a ton of players like that. Are we taking a break, or are we calling it a day?
I think we're just got to wrap it up here pretty soon. That hour went by quick.
The PGA is on fire right now. We start the new season. I'm very excited about that.
That'll be a good one in the coming
here we
weeks.
go. Yes, I can't wait. Now you know what I do every Sunday after football is over. I'm a complete loser.
It'll be good. Interesting to talk about PGA Tour, Live Tour. I know we were going back and forth off the air as well.
We'll get into that a little bit later, and we'll see what happens.
This was a really great podcast, guys. I really appreciate you guys and just being back here in the good old USA. Yeah,
welcome home.
Love it. I appreciate that. Yeah,
so good.
you.
Glad to have you back, David.
Thank you.
I know
Doc.
You're gonna pull the trigger from back there. Look at this. You're like a prog rock keyboardist, banging around on the different banks of keys.
We got to get the
I'm gonna
outro
come
music
join
here.
you.
Can we dance our way out of this? Let's go.
There it is. You better
right,
hurry
let's
back.
go.
You gotta finish it out, ladies and gentlemen. Here he is,
The one, the only,
The dog.
Let's go.
Thanks for joining us here at the DigiFan Podcast in the Meta Sports League studios for Wags, L. Teagues, and Peanut. And some of our other fellas, JC and Quirky Quirk. I'm Doc.
Episode 5 in the books. Thank you, guys.
Episode 6.
Boom.
6.
We got a double episode coming out this week.
That's right. Episode
See
5
ya.
and 6.
Noon on Fridays.
Bye, guys.